It's 5:47 p.m. You're still at work. Your kid's school pickup was at 5:30. Your phone has 3 messages from your wife, each one a little shorter, a little colder. You're not a bad father. You love your kids. You'd take a bullet for them. But right now, you're sitting in traffic, and the only thing you feel is the weight in your chest. That weight is the problem. In 2026, most fathers won't fail because they don't love their kids. They'll fail because they're overloaded, haven't recovered, and trying to lead a family while their body is in constant stress mode. This isn't about laziness, it's about collapse. This video isn't tips, it isn't motivation. It's 7 systems that work when you're tired, triggered, and the house is loud, so that you'll know what to do in those moments. The American Psychological Association reports 77% of U.S. workers felt work-related stress in the past month, and 57% felt negative impacts like burnout. The CDC says about 37% of men are sleeping under 7 hours a night. The Survey Center on American Life found 15% of men reporting having no close friends. And Pew reports 63% of fathers say they spend too little time with their children. That's not a character flaw. That's exposure. And it draws a separation line: drift versus design. So pause for a second. Which one are you right now? Not which one do you want to be. Which one are you actually living? That weight in your chest, that distance from your family, that quiet lowering of standards, doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because you're standing in an environment that was never designed to support a present father. Let me show you what that environment looks like. You can feel it in your body before you can explain it. Pressure 1 is chronic work stress. Not the kind that makes you driven, the kind that makes you short, the kind that follows you home. When 77% of workers report work stress, the baseline is already elevated. You don't walk through your front door clean. You walk in still gripping the day. Micro payoff: you come home present, but not peaceful. Pressure 2 is not getting enough sleep. Under 7 hours isn't just tired. Your brain doesn't work right. When you don't sleep enough, you lose the ability to pause and think before you react. You get angry faster. Micro payoff: small things start feeling personal. You're running on empty. Pressure 3 is time poverty. Pew found 63% of fathers say they spend too little time with their kids, usually because of work. That creates quiet corrosion. You live with guilt that never fully turns off. Micro payoff: guilt doesn't make you present. It makes you compensate. Money, screens, big weekends. But your kids don't need big weekends. They need your Tuesday night. Pressure 4 is relationship strain after kids. About 2 in 3 couples see relationship satisfaction decline in the first years after becoming parents. Less sleep, less time, more logistics. Without a system for connection, you default to transactions. Micro payoff: this is how love turns into scorekeeping. Pressure 5 is isolation and digital fragmentation. 15% of men having no close friends is not a fun fact, it's a structural problem. When you have no tribe, there's no mirror, no correction, no place to tell the truth without it becoming a crisis. So you drift privately. You normalize standards you would never accept if strong men were watching. Micro payoff: Isolation makes compromise sound reasonable. Be honest with yourself. How many of those 5 pressures are you carrying right now? Now here's the mechanism most men miss. Stress plus fatigue plus isolation rarely creates a dramatic explosion. It creates a quiet lowering of standards. You stop training. You stop planning. You stop initiating with your wife. You stop being playful with your kids. Not because you chose to abandon them, because you're operating without structure, and the environment wins by default. And this is the part most men get wrong. They hear everything you just heard, and their first instinct is to try harder, be more disciplined, be more patient, be more motivated. But effort doesn't beat environment. When pressure is constant, sleep is broken, time is scarce, relationships are strained, and you're carrying it alone. Willpower collapses first. That's why good men don't fail because they don't care. They fail because they're trying to hold chaos together with intention instead of structure. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't install systems that hold when you're tired, triggered, and under load, the environment will design your life for you. That's the fork in the road. Drift or design. What separates the men who quietly slide from the men who stabilize isn't personality, it's architecture. So now we shift, not into motivation, not into advice, into the 7 systems that decide whether 2026 breaks you or builds you. Most men hear monk mode and think isolation. That's not what this is. Monk mode is strategic subtraction, temporary, intentional, purpose-driven. Monk mode originates from ancient monastic traditions where men deliberately withdrew from distraction, excess, and social noise to build discipline, clarity, and inner order. Across Stoic, Christian, Buddhist, and Eastern monastic systems, the core principle was the same: remove stimulation to strengthen self-command. Historically, this was not escape from life, but preparation for responsibility, leadership, and service. Modern monk mode is a secular adaptation of this principle. Temporary, intentional austerity to reset habits, regain control over attention, and reestablish authority over one's impulses. Men who practiced this historically emerged more grounded, decisive, and capable of leading others. You are overstimulated, and you're calling it normal. Messages, noise, news, content, 100 tiny decisions that steal your edge before you even get home. Fragmented men don't become stable fathers. They become reactive fathers. The point is to reduce inputs so your nervous system can downshift and your focus can return. Not for ego, for leadership. Here's why most men fail. They treat stimulation like rest. They work hard, then recover by flooding the brain with more input. Then they wake up with less patience and less self-respect. So keep it bounded. Focus, emotional stability, self-trust, because you do what you said you would do, and your family feels it. How you practice it isn't complicated, but it must be structured. Here's the part most men get wrong. They think monk mode is about discipline. It's not. It's about structure. Miss one of the 4 pillars, and the whole thing collapses. Pillar 1, approach. One clear outcome, you're moving forward. Not 10, 1. Pillar 2, avoid. What you remove completely for the season. Inputs, habits, behaviors that keep you fragmented. You don't cut back, you remove. Pillar 3, rules. Non-negotiables you do not debate with yourself. Simple, repeatable standards that prove you're serious. Pillar 4, deadline. A clear end date. 21 days, 60 days, 90 days. Whatever you choose it on purpose and you finish it. Men don't need infinite discipline. They need finished promises. Here's a clean, real example. Outcome: restore my presence at home. Approach: I will be device-free during dinner and bedtime, 5 nights a week. Avoid: alcohol for the season and phone scrolling after 8:30 p.m. Not just a little. Rules: train 3 days a week and do 1 weekly check-in with my wife, scheduled, not spontaneous. Deadline: 60 days. Start date, end date. No renegotiation. That's monk mode. Bounded, specific, finishable. Here's the separating question. Can you commit to 60 days of something specific? Not forever, not perfectly, just 60 days. Seneca's warning still stands. It's not that you have a short time to live, it's that you waste much of it. Monk mode is you refusing to waste your life in a fog. Now system 2, because the moment you come out of monk mode, life rushes back in. Work expands. Obligations fill the week. Other people's needs crowd in. And here's what happens if you don't plan your calendar ahead of time. You wake up on a random Tuesday and realize you haven't actually talked to your wife in weeks. Your oldest asks if you'll come to his game, and you're already booked. You want to work out, but there's no space. You want to be there for your family, but you're reacting to whatever comes up at work. By December, you're not wondering where the year went. You're wondering why your wife feels like a stranger and your kids barely know you. And the worst part, you can't get that time back. This is not productivity. It's authority. If you don't decide where your time goes, your job will decide. Your phone will decide. Other people's needs will decide. The origin here is practical. Jesse Itzler talks about seeing the year, a big calendar, the full picture, because a man who can't see his time can't lead it. Origin. Jesse Itzler is a serial entrepreneur, endurance athlete, and high-performance thinker best known for building companies like Marquis Jet, co-owning the Atlanta Hawks, and living by extreme accountability and long-term thinking. His work centers on one idea. Most people fail because they let life happen to them instead of designing it. The winning system forces men to zoom out and see their entire year at once: family, health, marriage, recovery, and work. So life is planned intentionally, not reactively. When a man places what matters first on the calendar, everything else must respect it. This system restores clarity, authority over time, and the power to say no, which is why it radically reduces overwhelm and increases follow-through for men who actually use it. Why do most men fail here? They let work expand. They let obligations fill the week. They say yes too fast. They keep their priorities in their head, which means they disappear the moment stress hits. Then they try to be present with no structure behind it. What this system gives you is freedom through structure. When your yes and no are decided in advance, you stop negotiating with yourself every day. You stop resenting your family for interrupting you because you already chose them on the calendar. You show up calm because your life isn't an accident anymore. How you practice it is life first. Before work goes on the calendar, 3 categories go on first: marriage or partnership time. Weekly, protected, non-negotiable. If you don't schedule connection, you schedule distance. Father-child presence blocks. Real presence, device-free, scheduled. It's not about the quantity of hours. It's about your attention being undivided. Solo regulation time. Training, walking, journaling, silence, whatever steadies you, because if you don't regulate yourself, you will eventually regulate with anger, withdrawal, or numbness. Then work fills in around that. Not because work is evil, because you are the father first. And here's the payoff when you do this the right way. Your family doesn't feel fit in, they feel anchored. You stop resenting your kids for needing you because you already chose them on purpose. Your partner doesn't have to chase you for some scraps of attention because connection has a place to land. And here's what you get: control. You decide where your time goes instead of reacting to whatever shows up. Peace. The internal war quiets down because your priorities are real, not theoretical. Presence. You show up calmer because your life isn't an accident anymore. That's not romance. That's leadership. Which brings us to the hard truth. Subtraction and planning create space, but pressure still hits. And still under pressure, you'll revert. Because planning controls time, but it doesn't control your body. When stress hits, logic disappears. The nervous system takes over, and unless you train that system, your best plans collapse in the moments that matter most. Systems 3 and 4: regulation and identity, emotional mastery, and self-image. System 3 is emotional mastery. Not positivity, not staying calm as a personality trait. Regulation. Because when pressure hits, you don't lose your values first. You lose your nervous system. Your body goes into fight, flight, or shutdown, and then you call it a bad day. But your family experiences it as anger, distance, control, or silence. Most men don't think they have an emotional problem. They think they have a workload problem. But unprocessed emotion doesn't disappear. It stores. It stacks. And under stress, it leaks. You snap, then justify it. You withdraw, then call it focus. You tighten control, then call it leadership. You go numb, then call it strength. That isn't strength. That's overflow. The origin of emotional mastery is not new. Stoics trained themselves to govern their reactions because they understood a simple truth. You can't control the world, but you can control your response. Under chronic stress, your ability to regulate and choose drops. You start living from impulse instead of principle. This is why we use the Presence Process by Michael Brown. Origin. The Presence Process, created by Michael Brown, comes from a synthesis of conscious breathing, emotional integration, and inner child work rooted in both modern trauma psychology and ancient awareness practices. Brown developed it after years of personal illness and emotional instability, discovering that unfelt emotions stored in the body were driving reactivity, anxiety, and disconnection, not lack of willpower or discipline. The process is a 10-week, twice-daily conscious breathing and emotional integration practice designed to bring unresolved emotional patterns into awareness and neutralize them without suppression or analysis. For men and fathers, this is critical. Unintegrated emotions leak out as anger, withdrawal, numbness, or control, and children absorb that energy, whether words are spoken or not. The Presence Process trains a man to respond instead of react, making it one of the few systems that directly prevents emotional inheritance being passed from father to child. It's a 10-week structure, self-guided, consistent. It's not talk therapy. It's training the ability to stay present with what you usually avoid: breath, awareness, and emotional integration. And I need to be honest with you here. Over the last 5 years, we've completed roughly 70 weeks of structured emotional work, including running that process multiple times. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying it because we learned something the hard way. Intentions don't protect your family. Regulation does. You can love your kids and still scare them with your tone. You can provide and still abandon them emotionally. You can be in the house and still be unsafe to approach. Most men fail at this point because they want a technique, not a transformation. They want a quick fix that lets them keep the same internal wiring. They want to manage stress without meeting the parts of themselves they've been avoiding since they were boys. The presence process forces you to stop running, and that's why it's for courageous men only. What this system gives you is steadiness under noise, not perfection, not monk-like detachment. Steadiness. Here's what that looks like in real life. Your kid spills milk. Old you snaps. New you cleans it up and stays steady. The partner brings you something hard. Old you shuts down or swings sharp. New you stays present and listens. Work blows up at 5 p.m. Old you brings that chaos home. New you handles it and then walks through the door cleaner. Fewer spikes, faster repair, less damage when you miss, because you can come back and make it right without ego, and your kids can feel it. Children track safety through your nervous system, not your words. If your body is calm, they settle. If your body is chaos, they adapt to chaos. How you practice it is simple to say and hard to do. You commit to a structured season. You breathe daily, even when you don't feel like it. You stop outsourcing your regulation to alcohol, scrolling, overwork, or silence. You stay present long enough for the charge to move through you. A principle that fits here is Jung's. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most men call it stress. Pause and zoom out for a second. Monk mode clears the noise. The calendar decides where your time goes. Emotional mastery keeps you steady when pressure hits. But here's what most men miss. All three of those systems fail if you don't address something deeper. Something that decides whether you keep your promises or break them quietly. Your identity. Who you believe you are when things get hard. Now, System 4 is self-image. This is the operating system underneath everything you do. And if you don't address it, you will sabotage your own progress no matter how motivated you feel today. Self-image is not mindset. It's the baseline identity your brain is designed to protect. This isn't new. In the 1950s, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon, discovered something unsettling. He changed men's faces, sometimes dramatically, but many of their lives didn't improve. Some even got worse. Maltz realized the problem wasn't the face. It was the self-image the nervous system was programmed to defend. His conclusion became foundational psychology. You will never outperform the man you believe yourself to be. Self-image is the quiet story you carry around. Who you are, what you can sustain, what you deserve, what you always do when things get hard. Most fathers fail here because they think change is about effort, but effort fights identity, and identity wins every time. If your self-image says, "I'm the kind of man who burns out," you will eventually burn out. If it says, "I'm inconsistent," you will break promises, especially under pressure. If it says, "I'm bad at conflict," you will avoid hard conversations until they explode. Decades later, James Clear popularized the modern language for this. Behavior change sticks when it becomes identity. Long before that, William James pointed to the same truth. Your actions and your identity are locked in a feedback loop, each reinforcing the other. So why does this matter for fathers? For you? Because your family doesn't live inside your intentions. They live inside your standards. Your self-image determines what you tolerate, where your boundaries sit. Whether I'll do better becomes action or another cycle. This system gives you follow-through that doesn't rely on daily willpower. When identity shifts, you stop negotiating. You stop debating. You act from a standard. How do you practice it? Not with affirmations, with evidence. You build identity by keeping small promises under pressure, choosing standards you can repeat on bad days, closing the gap between who you say you are and what your family experiences. Once regulation and identity stabilize, something changes. Your leadership becomes audible, because now your words carry weight. Your identity is the thermostat. Your words are the temperature everyone feels. And that takes us to communication. Systems 5 and 6, speech and capacity, communication, and physical readiness. Not charisma, not being nicer. Communication is the bridge between what you intend and what your family actually experiences. And this didn't begin with words. Communication began with survival. Before language, before civilization, men communicated through signal, posture, tone, timing, presence, silence. A man's voice told children whether they were safe. His stillness told others whether danger was near. His clarity told the group whether he could be followed. Men who sent unclear signals got people hurt. Men whose words didn't match reality lost trust. That is the origin. Communication evolved as coordination under pressure. Even today, under stress, your family doesn't measure your intention. They measure your tone, your timing, your ability to stay respectful when you don't get what you want. Your children don't hear your explanation first. They feel your nervous system. This is why a calm father with few words has more authority than a loud father with perfect arguments. Most men fail here for a simple reason. They don't speak early, they speak late. They tolerate something that bothers them. They power through. They stay silent, hoping it resolves itself. And then pressure leaks. They explode over something small that isn't the real issue. Or they disappear into silence, leaving confusion behind. That's not communication. That's pressure leaking out. So you live by a standard, a line you don't negotiate with. I communicate only what is necessary, clearly, effectively, and respectfully. Without that standard, here's what happens. You come home stressed, and your child catches the blast. Your partner brings up something hard, and you defend or shut down. Your family starts walking on eggshells because they don't know which version of you is walking in. With that standard, everything changes. You name what's happening without dumping it. You make a clean request instead of vague frustration. You connect without sarcasm. You repair without ego. Micro payoff? Your partner feels safe enough to tell the truth. Your children feel guided instead of managed. And the simplest practice is still the one most men resist. Pause before you respond. Not because you're weak, because you're the man. You choose the temperature you bring into the room. But here's the truth most people miss. Under fatigue, you'll revert, because your words are only as steady as your body. When sleep is broken, patience disappears. When energy is low, presence fades. When the body is depleted, tone sharpens. Which is why communication mastery doesn't stand alone, and why the next system matters more than most men realize. Now, System 6 is physical readiness. This is the father's body, and it's not aesthetics, it's capacity. Before strategy, before communication, before leadership, there was the body. In every ancient civilization, a man's readiness was assumed. In Sparta, strength was trained to impress. It was trained to endure hunger, cold, fatigue, pain, and pressure. Because a man who collapses under strain becomes a liability to his family. The Spartans understood something modern men forgot. Strength is not vanity. It is responsibility. A man who couldn't move fast didn't protect. A man who couldn't carry weight didn't provide. A man who broke under exhaustion didn't lead. Physical readiness was not optional. It was assumed. Warriors didn't ask, "Do I feel like training today?" Because readiness is decided before the moment arrives. Fast forward to now. Today, danger doesn't look like invading armies. It looks like chronic stress, broken sleep, injury, burnout, anxiety, and emotional volatility. Capacity means this: capacity to carry stress without snapping, capacity to stay patient when your sleep is broken, capacity to lead when the day is heavy and the house is loud. Most fathers fail here because they treat the body as optional until it becomes a problem. They tell themselves they'll handle it when things calm down. But this season doesn't calm down. It intensifies. And biology is not moved by good intentions. Sleep drives regulation. If you don't recover, you become reactive. Fitness drives patience. A stronger, more conditioned body gives you a wider margin before you break. Energy drives leadership. If you're depleted, your words sharpen and your presence thins. The data is clear. A large percentage of men are sleeping under 7 hours a night. That doesn't just affect long-term health. It affects who you are tonight, how you respond, how much patience you have when it matters most. What physical readiness gives you is resilience. You become harder to knock off center. You have more emotional bandwidth. You stop relying on willpower to be kind. And how you practice it stays clean. You protect sleep like it's part of your job. You train consistently, not perfectly. You respect recovery because recovery is what makes you useful. You don't build an image. You build capacity. Your children don't need a perfect body. They need a resilient one. Now zoom out. You've heard 6 systems: subtraction, calendar authority, regulation, identity, communication, physical capacity. On paper, that's everything. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Every one of these systems has a failure point. And they all fail in the same moment, when you're tired, triggered, and alone. That's when the 6 start to loosen, quietly. Not because you're weak, but because no man holds standards in isolation forever. And here's the truth most men don't want to hear. If you're watching this with no close men to call, no brothers who can look you in the eye and tell you the truth, you're already drifting. You might not feel it yet, but you will. Because isolation doesn't just make you lonely. It removes the one thing that keeps all 6 systems alive. It removes the mirror, the correction, the man who says, "No, that's not who you are." And that's where System 7 comes in. System 7 is brotherhood, and it's the keystone. Not socializing, not networking, not a group chat that shares memes and disappears the moment life gets heavy. Brotherhood is shared standards under pressure. For most of human history, men were not formed alone. They were shaped in tribes, councils, hunting parties, war bands, and initiation rites. A man didn't have to invent his own structure. He stepped into one. He was watched, corrected, challenged. He had a place where weakness could be addressed without collapsing his home under the weight of everything he carried. A place where failure didn't mean exile, but correction. A place where standards were held outside his own fluctuating mood. In ancient times, a man alone wasn't independent. He was dead. Hunters didn't hunt alone. Warriors didn't fight alone. Fathers didn't carry the burden of provision, protection, and decision-making by themselves. Brotherhood wasn't optional. It was infrastructure. Then modern life removed it. Today, you're expected to lead a family, perform at work, stay fit, stay calm, stay sexually present, stay emotionally regulated, stay financially stable, and do it alone. That's not strength. That's a setup. Isolation quietly changes what you tolerate. When no one sees you, discipline slips. When no one challenges you, standards soften. When no one mirrors you, compromise starts to sound reasonable. Just skip the workout. Just stay up late scrolling. Just avoid the hard conversation. Just go numb for a bit. This is why brotherhood is the keystone. Because when you're tired, your mind lies. It tells you you're trapped, that it's pointless, that escape is the answer. A real circle brings you back to reality. It gives you a mirror, not a soft mirror, a clean one. And this isn't philosophy. It's measurable. The Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running longitudinal studies in history, found that close relationships, not money, not status, are the strongest predictor of long-term health, stability, and well-being. Men don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they lose context. You choose serious men. You build regular contact, not occasional check-ins. You put truth above comfort. You let other men witness your standards, because what it witnessed is harder to betray. And this is where I name the container. The Father Within Brotherhood exists for one reason: to make these 7 systems lived, not discussed, not to motivate you, to structure you, to put you in a room where drift gets noticed early, where standards are normal, where pressure is shared, where leadership is practiced, not performed. Because the father you want to become is not built in isolation. He's built at the edge of pressure, with other men holding the same line. Here's what separates the men who collapse from the men who stabilize in 2026. Not intelligence, not luck, not intentions, structure. You heard 7 systems in this video. On paper, they make sense. But here's what happens when a man tries to hold them alone. By February, monk mode becomes optional. By March, the calendar gets overwritten. By April, you're reacting instead of regulating. By May, your standards soften quietly. By June, you're in the house, but not felt. We've watched this pattern up close. A man starts January clear and committed. Then pressure hits. Work, fatigue, conflict, a sick kid. And instead of leaning on structure, he trades it for relief. That's how good men disappear inside their own lives. That isn't weakness. That's exposure. 2026 draws a line: drift or design. So here's the real question. Are you ready to stop drifting? Not ready to be perfect, not ready to have it all figured out, just ready to stop the quiet slide. Here's your move. Pick one system and commit to it this week. Put it on the calendar today. Then tell us in the comments which one you're starting with: monk mode, the winning system, emotional mastery, self-image, communication, physical readiness, or brotherhood. Why comment? Because the men reading those comments are doing the same work. You're not alone anymore. And if you want a community that makes these systems lived, not debated, the Father Within Brotherhood is there. Link below. This isn't motivation. It's structure. See you inside.